All right. Courtney, maybe you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Courtney McDowell. As you see on the screen, it says Courtney with a K. We like to be phonetic around here. I'm in Texas. I'm about halfway between San Antonio and Austin. And this is all very new here in Texas. People don't even know what forest therapy is. I was the first certified guide in the whole state of Texas, which is kind of a big place. There's a couple of other certified guides over in the Houston area. As far as I know, Michelle, there's not any other trail certification consultants here in Texas.
No.
So things are new here and just getting things going.
Have you had any trail interest? I think, didn't you mention a trail that you might be looking at?
Yes. I actually have several leads on potential trails to get certified. I was out of the country for the entire month of October traveling in Southeast Asia, so I personally had to push pause on that. But now that I'm back, I'm looking back into that and seeing who really wants to move forward and seeing, time will tell where people want to go.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Michelle.
Yes, Brenda, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm in Wheaton, Illinois, and I guide at the Morton Arboretum and also at the Resiliency Institute in Naperville. And I have two interested parties, the Morton Arboretum and Cook County Forest Preserves, and possibly DuPage County Forest Preserves. But at this point, they're all looking at budgets because I guess it's budget season right now.
Okay.
And they don't know what they'll be able to do. So it is going to be time soon for me to start checking back with all of them to see if they want to move forward with that. So I'm interested in what everybody has to say here.
We can be in discussion too because, we have an opportunity if they're going to be doing more than one trail, say, and because they're a nonprofit, that we can make some negotiations with pricing. Okay, so just kind of let them know that there's opportunities for us to negotiate, and there's also opportunities, especially for forest preserves, if they are interested in potentially training staff, right? Because some of them would prefer to have a staff as a trained guide rather than hire a staff, although that does, maybe infringe upon you a little bit. But that we can work out a package, where we can kind of do a training and do a discount on a training and do trail certification and stuff. So.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah. So always keep that in mind, that if you're working with a nonprofit especially, or you're working with an entity who offers programming and might want to train staff, that we can work together to kind of negotiate pricing. So everyone just kind of keep that in mind. All right, Marianne, you want to go?
So I'm Marianne Rowe. I'm in Pacific Grove, California, which is in the Monterey area. And I am in conversation with Earthrise Institute up in Petaluma. And we'll be in conversation soon with 1440 and possibly Esalen. So there are things that are happening. Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Rob?
So I am Rob Klee. I'm located currently in Kitchener, Ontario, which is about an hour west of Toronto. We have a lot of guides in this area. So my work around here has been mostly around working with educators around how to bring nature connection into their classrooms. So I'm not doing a lot of forest therapy walks here because I don't want to take business away from, I'm retired, so I don't really need to do this to make money. It's just sort of to keep me out of trouble. I also have a place up in Tobermory, Ontario, which is about 3.5 hours north of here. And it's a very different area. It's a UNESCO biosphere, a world biosphere site. It's boreal forest. And there's also a national park and provincial parks up in that area. So I've been doing a lot more work up in that area around forest therapy. I've been doing some work with the provincial park about an hour south of Tobermory and have sent them some information around developing a trail, but most of their staff are laid off in the winter. so they won't be back until springtime. And I've also talked, there's 2 national parks kind of between my house up in Tobermory, and I've talked to them about doing trails as well. And they do downsize quite a bit in the winter, but they're also in the midst of budget. Somebody else mentioned about budgets. So, you know, I've even said that I would waive my consulting fees, because I think if we could get the National Park System to put in a certified trail, and if we can get Ontario parks to do the same, there's a lot of national parks and provincial parks that we might be able to do some work with. So,
Well,
see how it goes.
Rob, I wanted to fill you in then, because so Rana Schneeberger, do you know Rana?
Yeah, we're on the Canadian executive for ANFT.
Okay, so Rana is working with a trail, working with parks. Is that's what you call your
Probably Parks
national?
Canada? Yeah, national parks. Yeah.
So she's working. I'm looking it up. Let me look this up really quick so I can. It's in Alberta, Lake Louise, Alberta. It's called Lake Louise, and it's like a resort.
Okay. Yep. There's resorts within the national park, so it could
Fairmont Chateau, Lake Louise.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So Rana is working with them and with parks.
Mm-hmm.
They actually have to create trails, so there are no existing.
Right.
There is no existing trail. So she is working with parks to actually create a forest therapy trail, and then to also create one for Lake Louise, because Lake Louise is on national parks land. So
which
that's
would be the perfect combination, because the Fairmount could fund. They have lots of money.
Exactly, they have lots of money.
Land, so.
They are paying for it, actually. So they are paying for the parks a trail to be developed.
Yeah. And that's expensive when you're actually building the trail. I'm looking at existing trails, which minimizes the cost quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that is my recommendation for everybody, that you really seek out existing trails that you maybe guide on, and that you work essentially with private entities, because it's just so much faster and easier than with public entities. Not to discourage working with public entities, it's just maybe for your first one or your first couple, go with the low-hanging fruit, right? Go with something a little easier, get some comfort, with the process. And then once you're really kind of comfortable with the process of trail certification, then you can kind of move into public organizations. Because so like Brenda, Morton Arboretum is a private organization, but it's still bureaucracy, you know what I mean? They still have a bureaucracy. And then you're tackling Cook County and DuPage County Forest Preserves, which, I worked with them. So it's a lot of, it's a lot of bureaucracy too. But good for you. And hopefully a Morton Arboretum trail. By the way, when I was home for Thanksgiving, I hiked at Big Rock. Have you been to Big Rock Trail?
Yes, I have a trail up there I use by Big Rock. Yeah.
That is a beautiful trail. I was like, this is a forest therapy trail. I wonder if Brenda uses this one. That's great. That's great. So I just wanted to share that with you. Did you have a question, Robin?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the other people, that all of you folks, what you're charging basically for your hourly consulting fee, what this ends up looking like on your proposals. That's just my question.
I haven't charged yet, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
I tend to charge $150 an hour for anything I do related to forest therapy or consulting.
Okay.
So that probably would be my base price going in.
Okay. That's about consistent with what I'm thinking as well. Anybody else can chime in on that?
Well, Phyllis, you charged $1,000 because originally the rate was $1,000 before we lowered it. So Phyllis had started the process when we were still at $1,000.
Yeah, I charge $1,000, and it actually turned out to be something like $50 an hour. And really, it's actually with all of the communications going back and forth, you're maybe making more like $30 an hour. So if I were actually to charge $150 an hour, I think it would have been something that would not have been attractive or affordable. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, if it's a trail that's nearby that isn't going to use a lot of your travel time, that you're not spending 3 hours driving both ways or something, trying to be close to what we charge. So $750 is what ANFT charges. So if you can budget to be around $750 to $1,250, just to keep it kind of affordable. If the trail is not going to need a lot of adaption, a lot of changes, then that is an affordable option for people.
Right.
Because I typically tell trails, when people contact me about how much is this going to cost, I usually give them a ballpark of $1,500 at the very low end to, $2,500 at the higher end. Plus, I tell them, and then any additional costs to, make changes or adjustments to your trail, marketing, signage, those kinds of things. So I say you need to budget for those things as well. And I don't know what your costs are for that. So that's for you to kind of just figure out. So that's something you can kind of communicate, and you can kind of base your pricing on. Some places like Phyllis is experiencing, she's been having to do a lot of back and forth communication because this woman is just very particular. With most people, I don't think you're really going to have that issue. It's going to be pretty clear. You go in, you meet with them, you walk the trail, you then, sign the MOUs. So you have your meeting, you sign the MOUs, you get that all done. Then you go off and you do your trail assessment, take the pictures, the videos, make your map, do all that kind of stuff, present it to them. They make any of the changes. You work on the marketing materials while any trail adjustments are being done. And then, you do just check it all out once everything is done. And, you might have some times that you're going to meet with them when they're in process. Maybe they're wanting to have you come out and confirm where all the posts are going to go if it's a self-guided trail. So just kind of walk yourself through this process and think about the amount of time, and how many meetings you might be having. And then factor in email communications or phone call communications as well, just to get a general idea of time. We say it's about 20 hours, but, maybe if some of you can start tracking how long it is taking, we can have a better gauge for how long it might be that you're spending with each of the trails. Because if we all can say, if you can say, okay, well, this trail took me 40 hours, this trail took me 30 hours, you can start getting a ballpark of how long you think this process might take.
Yeah. And with my long distance trail, I haven't been down there yet because I've only talked to her on the phone, but it's about a 2-hour one-way trip, I think, an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Is it the Serenbe one?
No, Serenbe is
Mindful
closer
Trail?
to me. It's the one down at the Blue Heron.
The Blue Heron Lake. Okay.
Lake one. And she's the one that's like trying to generate some funding to pay for this. And she had a death in the family, so they had a 40-day mourning period that was over about 2 weeks ago. And she recontacted me and said she's back to business and that she was setting that up, the funding source, to try to get some donations. And so I think it's still going to roll okay, but my fees are a little higher because I am charging her for mileage as well as some of my drive time, like kind of like half my rate for the drive time, I think, is what I did, and then the mileage, which is typical, I think, with consulting
Yes.
gigs. I Googled it, and that's kind of what I came up with.
Well, like I'm a consultant too, and I often don't charge people for my travel or mileage. Instead, I just deduct it on my taxes. So
Okay, yeah.
But it all depends on what it is that I'm doing, and who it is that I'm working with.
Yeah, but I
For
kind of
this,
built
I
that
think
into
it
what
makes sense to charge for your travel. I think it makes sense for a trail certification.
yeah, but I can also use that to negotiate with, like I can lower my, like I can knock some off from that also. So I went in kind of high, and then, you know, I can negotiate. I have some negotiating room.
And she is very she really wants this to happen.
Yeah,
Sandra. Yeah, she's really determined to have a trail made here.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So did you itemize all of that on your MOU and contract with them? That here's your fee, there's additional for your transportation and that kind of thing?
We haven't signed an MOU yet, but I sent her a fee schedule because she wanted to know what the fees were going to be, so she knows what to prepare for. And so, yeah, I just kind of like sent her a breakdown. There was something in one of the folders that I looked at and kind of used that as a guideline, and applied my fees to it, along with the, you know, mileage and all that.
Adding the mileage.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, okay.
you know, it kind of had, you know, it was like basically a spreadsheet and, you know, the bottom line. But the next time I talk to her, I am going to offer her, like, just to negotiate with my fees a little bit, just to give her a break as well. But I want it to be worth my time too, and energy, because it's
Right.
a 2-hour drive one way. It's a full day trip for me if I go down there.
Well, and that was my next question based on what Rob had just said. I can see where there would be moments that we would want to waive our fees if there's an opportunity like national parks and to make that happen. But that gets me thinking, you know, business wise, it seems like that should definitely be listed and itemized in contracts and MOUs and clearly stated, here is the fee that you are being gifted, because otherwise, if we're giving away our services, then we're all undermining each other inadvertently by trying to do something good. Do we then, you know, do you see where I'm going with that? So I'd love to discuss that a little bit and hear people's thoughts, because it's just important to think about, you know, in this budding industry, how do we grow it but not undermine our own future? So thoughts on that, you guys?
I totally agree with you. You know, the worst thing we could ever do is cheapen what we offer. And, you know, I think if we do I work with a lot of organizations where I charge nothing because they have no budgets, and I really am trying to promote this, especially if they work with kids. So, I think, though, to acknowledge, you know, this would be the standard and customary fee for this that I am then gifting you. And some places actually can issue tax receipts for that gift.
Right, gift in kind or whatever.
Yeah. So there's benefits that way, but I think so I'm on the executive of the Association for Nature and Forest Therapy, the Canadian Council, and we're actually, Rona and I are working on this right now. What is sort of a price range that we should be kind of promoting in Canada? And there's a lot of variance when we survey people, but I think we need to look at the value that we're delivering, plus the amount of work. Like if I'm out on a 3-hour walk, it's a 5-hour walk for me, you know, because I'm there ahead of time and making sure there's no, you know, obstacles, things, you know, widowmakers that are going to fall on people, making sure that I've got things set up, because I don't have a lot of time to set up for things like the tea ceremony. So I have that all done ahead of time. You know, we can't really cheapen what we do, but I do know that there's a lot of organizations that if we can really promote this, it's ultimately going to help our marketing. For every free thing I do, I get a couple paid things out of it. So it's worth it for me. But again, we don't want to cheapen what we do, I don't think.
Well, and to add to that, thank you for sharing that, Rob. To add to that, when you're going to be offering your services, and maybe you're in a situation where they might not be able to fully afford your services, maybe what you can then do is negotiate a guiding contract with them. So if maybe they don't have the full money to pay for a trail certification, maybe you can negotiate a year-long contract with them to guide on their property. And that's something where they don't necessarily have to pay But if they get people, if they market it and get people to register for it, then you get, 80% of the funds or something like that. So, there's some different ways we can kind of work around being generous with our time and our talents, but also finding ways to get rewarded too.
Can I just add too that in my MOU with the Kahalu'u Gallery and Gardens that I spoke about earlier, I included not only the project timeline, so I have an addendum that has, besides the boilerplate that Michelle gave us, I added a timeline that has exactly how the project would roll out, as well as a breakdown of my hours, so that she can actually see exactly how much time I would be spending and exactly what I'd be doing. And that's where, to my calculation, I've actually spent more time in communications that were not expected. So whether or not you're gifting it or not, do actually itemize in your MOU.
Is that something that, I'm sorry, Marianne, I've interrupted you twice now. I'm so sorry. Phyllis, is that something you'd be willing to share, or
it's in there? It's in the folder.
Oh, good. Okay, because that'd be neat to see as we get started. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's in the Google Drive folder. It's called, I think I just did KGG. So you can see Phyllis's MOU in there.
So I wanted to circle back, Robin, to you said that for your drive time, that you did that at half of your rate. So are you thinking of charging an hourly rate? And if so, what are you thinking of charging for that?
I think I believe what I told her, that my normal hourly rate, and I'd have to look at this to be certain, but that my normal hourly rate would be $150 per hour.
Okay.
That seems to be the going rate. But I think I ended up with her because she's on a budget and really wants this to happen. I really want to help her. I've talked to her. She's a lovely, lovely person. I settled on $85 an hour and told her that was, like a discounted rate. Okay. But it still is fairly high, along with my mileage and, half my drive time and all that. I mean, a 2 hour drive is, adds 4 hours to my day.
Right.
I mean, I'd like to get compensated for it, but I can also use that 2 hours to listen to podcast or something. So, I have to kind of like weigh that with like, do I want the job to happen or not? So I really, because her brother-in-law died recently, I haven't had any additional conversation with her since I sent her that email, but we've been in a little bit of contact. She just told me what was going on. Michelle, she also wants to become a member and was asking me how she can pay for that. So
I'll tell her.
Yeah, if you can just touch base with her, because she had that question. And I know that, you can find it on the website, but she's not real technical.
No, yeah. She's like 85, right?
Yeah, she's old. Yeah, I don't know exactly how old. Anyway, so that was kind of my thought, but it kind of got, put on hold because of this 40-day mourning period. And I haven't been in touch with her the way I have wanted to be. And I'm planning on doing that this week. Things have settled down for me a little bit, and her as well. So that was, just because I'm trying to help her out, I think I settled on an $85 per hour rate.
Thank you. That's helpful, because all of the places that I'm in communication with will involve drive time. So,
yeah. And then so for the drive time, it's half that basically.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
Great. So how are people feeling about this process of trail certification? Does it seem like it makes sense, that you can follow the process along, that people are receptive? How are you kind of generally feeling, if you want to just go around the Zoom room? So Marianne, I see you now. If you want to share.
All right. Well, I'm in very early conversations, and so and I feel like I'm still learning the process myself, but I appreciate what you've put together, Phyllis, and what you've put together, Michelle, and then Phyllis, really appreciate your sharing your materials. That's been very, very helpful.
So you're so welcome. You know, once you go through the process, you'll find that it's really straightforward, logical, makes all sorts of sense. I think, except for just a little hitch and a little sort of personality issues with this one land manager. You know, I think it'll be a breeze for all of you. I think the first hurdle really is getting them to understand why this is going to be valuable for them and why trail certification is an important concept in general. That's the struggle that I'm having actually with my second and actually primary trail. So Michelle, I'm very happy to hear that, you know, you might be open to negotiating their rate slightly, because they are technically a nonprofit as a university facility. They're already so close to being, again, an ideal trail.
Yeah.
It's simply a matter of a small staff, too much already on the plate of the director. He just doesn't want to take on something else. But what I'm trying to do, and again, something I'd encourage everybody, when you're at this point of still trying to persuade the manager to become a certified trail, is document how it is that we bring value to them. So I'm trying to put forth now, okay, in this last year, how many people have I brought to your arboretum? How much did I actually give you back in a percentage of my fee? How many media interviews did I do on your site? How much sort of raising of profile did I do to help you on all of that? You know, just sort of continue to feed them with those kinds of hard data that somebody that's in my case, this director is very sort of scientifically based. So he's so much more interested in, you know, his micropropagation labs than in something sort of soft touch like forest bathing. But if I can say to him, look at how much I'm actually bringing to your site, I think the argument may be made for him in time. So working on that.
I'll add to that another thing to bring into those initial conversations, if it's a retreat center or someplace like that has a mission statement, go to the mission statement and connect the dots. So with Earthrise, it was an easy conversation because forest bathing is part of Earthrise's mission of interconnection and cultivating and stimulating a consciousness of interconnection. And so that's another thing in addition to the money piece is in the foundational mission.
And to add to that, also that tourism, for instance, for most of the trails we're working with in Canada, tourism seems to be the big selling point for them. That we're going to be able to drive more attention and traffic to your area through marketing. And, you know, all of these trails have an opportunity to craft an email with photos, craft social media posts that ANFT will put out to our people, right? So there's a lot of marketing that we can assist with and help promote. Plus, they're going to be on our website, on a map with a full profile that they can add photos to, add event information to, all of that. So kind of the tourism and like the Visitors Bureau, all of that, those are some good selling points that have been very effective in Canada.
Except for me. The problem I'm running into is the national park that I've been working with have so many visitors. It's the 4th most visited national park in Canada. And it's creating massive issues just for environmental degradation, parking. They really don't want any more people up there. So I can't sell it as that. I'm just selling it as, well, you've got all those people up there. Let's make them aware of the health benefits of spending time in nature. So that's how I'm trying to sell it for them, but the numbers won't. Now, with the provincial parks, maybe it'll be a little different, although they're always booked in terms of campers. So I don't know whether the trail will and attracting more people will be anything that they're that interested in either. So.
Well, an angle you might want to take with that is land tending. That when through forest therapy, people become better connected with the natural world, and that we incorporate kind of reverence for the land and land tending with forest therapy, so that if they're experiencing some degradation because of the visitors, that if we then engage the visitors with forest therapy, that we're making them more aware of how they're impacting the land and helping them learn how to reduce their impact.
I tried that. They don't want us to touch the plants or trees or bark or anything in a national park because they're worried about us spreading diseases. It's been a challenge working with these guys. Yeah, but having said that, they're giving me lots of work. So it's not that they're against it. It's just they've got guidelines they have to work with, and unfortunately, it conflicts a little bit, the philosophy of forest therapy and the preservationist philosophy of the national park system.
We'll have to find an angle there, shouldn't we, right?
Yeah,
We'll have to figure that one out. However, again, that's go with low-hanging fruit. Don't work so hard. And honestly, the more trails that get certified, then that is really what will probably motivate them. As more and more trails become certified in their neck of the woods, and forest therapy starts growing in population awareness and demand, then that will drive them to make some accommodations in their thinking.
So. I'm talking with Rona next week anyway. We have a meeting, so I'll ask her about that, and then I'll mention to the parks folks that they won't be the first national park to have a trail now. They waited too long.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Rona got to them first. Anyone else have some input on?
Well,
yeah, Marianne.
I'd just like to speak to what Rob said with regard to not wanting the bark to be touched and things like that. I had a recent conversation with a naturalist here from Monterey Bay Aquarium, and he talked about, he invented a way of being with the tide pools here that don't involve people going into the tide pools and stomping on all of the creatures that are there. And it was very creative. He said, he just goes at low tide, has people sit down, and then just look around at what is there. And without walking around and exploring, to look at what the sea is bringing to them. And so I'm wondering if, just sort of taking off from that, if there could be engagement with, I'm swaying here because I'm imagining looking at the trees blowing, and if there could be some kind of engagement that does not necessarily involve the touching, if that's what their concern is. So.
And it depends on the person you talk to. Not everybody's quite that stringent on it, but there's always ways to modify.
Yes.
So one thing I did want to bring up is, so when you do your first assessment, right, you're going to have to send to me a bunch of materials, right? You're going to be sending me photos, a map, video, the assessment form, all of that. And so I'm trying to use, we have OneDrive that we use at ANFT, but I've been having issue with permissions, because it's really meant for a business community. So I'm trying to figure out how I can open those folders up so that you can just put things right into this OneDrive folder. But I have not solved that yet. So in the meantime, I just want to offer 2 suggestions for sharing those documents to make it easiest. That there is Google Drive. There's always Google Drive, okay? So you can always, and they really accept most things in Google Drive. And then you can also put them like in a folder and use WeTransfer. It's a free service if your file isn't more than 2 megabytes, I think. But you can just use WeTransfer for up to 2 megabytes, and then you can use it again. So, you can use it multiple times, just you can only send that amount at one time. So those are 2 options, Google Drive and WeTransfer. You can also use Dropbox if you have a Dropbox account. You can also share things with Dropbox. If you're going to use Dropbox, though, I will give you a different email address to use for that Dropbox. Okay, so email me first if you're going to use Dropbox, because it's my private Dropbox. We don't use that for our business. So that would be the best way to share. And then the other thing is when you're sharing photos, rather than just sending me all these photos, I'd really appreciate it. I know it's a little bit time consuming, but you don't need to take more than 20 photos probably. Is if you could label them like, beginning of trail, trail marker 1, or, kind of give me some information so I understand what that photo is, and where it belongs kind of in the trail. And then on your map, when you do your hand-drawn map, it would be great if you could kind of say, this is where the posts are going to go, for the self-guided trail, if it's going to be a self-guided trail. And then you can even point out, like, took video here, or, something like that. Just some little markers on your trail map would also just be helpful, because remember, I'm like, I don't have a point of reference. So it's really helpful in your video if you can give me, like, the very first video that you take is how someone might arrive at the scene, so like I'm almost arriving there, and this is how I come upon the trail, and this is where the trailhead sign might go, and then walk me in a little bit to kind of being on the trail. That kind of just getting me centered and getting me into the trail would be really helpful for me to help get a better idea of how the trail is going. So I really, really appreciate that. But otherwise, it's been great on the trails that I've already done the assessments for. So I'm working on a brochure for one, just making some edits to that. And that's another thing that you're going to come across too. The trail that we're working with, they have a marketing department, and that marketing department wants to have full control over all of the marketing materials. But the trail certification consultant is drafting all the language and putting it all in a document for them to use to craft the brochure that they're going to end up with. So just be aware that that might be a process that you encounter, and to make sure you share that, that language with me so that I can review it and make any edits before you actually send it to the marketing department.
Is it possible, Michelle, to have a template for, or some of the wording, or if different consultants are willing to just have public access, the guides to other consultants to have access to wording and things that they've come up with? Can we?
Yeah, well, those are public. The brochures will be public, right? Because they're being published. Mm-hmm. So, like for right now, River Trail, which is on the website. So if you go to the River Trail, they have a brochure that already has language in the images. It's a photo of the brochure. Okay. And then as soon as we get more brochures created, then definitely I'll put those into Google Drive, at least, the language, or a PDF file, so that everyone can see kind of how people work different things. Mm-hmm. Another thing before we wrap up here, another thing I wanted to share is, in talking to Rana, she didn't have a lot of ideas about a self-guided trail. And so I was sharing some ideas with her, and I realized maybe I hadn't shared all these ideas with everybody. So when considering a self-guided trail, you have a lot of flexibility with how you want to have people interact with the trail. So you could have where it's just a metal number or symbol. So it could be a number, it could be a letter, it could be a symbol. And it could just be like a tree tag almost, that goes on tree tags. So instead of always being a wooden post, it could be something that is actually, on a tree or something like that, or on a bench, or, some other thing that's already existing there so that they don't have to do construction. So think about that. Then if they are going to do posts, that post then could carry, of course, the number, the letter, or the symbol. Or it could also be something with a QR code, if you're aware of QR codes. QR codes are those, they're squares, and they have kind of dots and things like them. And that when you use a QR code reader, it takes you to a link, a website. So what could also be done is that you have a QR code, and instead of having it on necessarily a printed sign that's going to be living there forever, it could then instead be on the brochure. So in other words, they could see a symbol of a bird, and that bird then takes them to the brochure, and they go to the bird on the brochure, and then they can go with their QR code reader and click on it and then listen to birdsong, right? If there aren't, to say like, let's use our sense of hearing, and it could be an audio invitation with some birdsong in the background. So there's all different things that you can kind of be creative with, but just know and if you're going to be elaborate like that, like crafting QR codes with audio files where you're actually offering the invitation in this audio file, and you have some maybe background noises that support the invitation that you're offering, then, that's going to be extra work for you, obviously, but it would make the trail maybe a much more interesting offering, right? And people don't have to. You'll have the brochure that'll have the language of the invitation. And if they have a QR code reader and want to interact that way, they could do that. So that's just another option. In SoundCloud, if you needed to learn, there's a website, you go to SoundCloud, and that is where you can upload audio files. And it's you can put a beautiful image with it, and people can go to SoundCloud to access that invitation. Yes, Phyllis?
Michelle, question. What are we doing to, well, first question, how many certified trails do we have right now?
Actual certified ones, 4.
4. How many maybe in the works?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So would it be possible sometime in 2020 for ANFT to do something that would really celebrate these certified trails? I mean, whether it's getting some kind of national media focus on it, I think that would make it even more attractive for those who are sitting on the fence to kind of come on board. And that could mean, many, many things. I mean, just whether it's just announcing them at conferences, of course, going to the New York Times or, the Washington Post or whatever it is, that kind of thing.
Like you, I have a marketing background, so.
I know. So you were always thinking about that, right? Yeah.
So I will absolutely be doing that. And what I'm really hoping for is that this Lake Louise trail, since they have pretty deep pockets, that they could maybe do a video of the trail, because videos really grab attention. And so they're wonderful for marketing. We have the one, if you go to the website, Certified Trails right now, we have that one with Sensore, which is just a lovely video, right, that they've done. And so if we can get a couple more videos and some other things, and I think that would make it an easy sell to magazines or, news, national news media and stuff like that, to just kind of show them, because they're very visual, right? To be able to show them, here's what a certified trail is, here is the benefits of having these trails here, blah, 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 and we can try to sell them. Yeah, so I'm on that. I just need we just need more trails to get certified, but it's a little challenging. I mean, some of you, like in Hawaii, you're okay with the weather, and in Texas, maybe it's okay with the weather. No, in Georgia, like
you know what's funny about that? The weather is actually a huge challenge in Texas because, and maybe Phyllis can relate to this. I don't know if you ever have bad weather there, but in Texas, Texans are just spoiled on good weather. And so it's this time of year is extremely unpredictable, and it is a huge challenge because just yesterday, I'm not kidding you, yesterday at 6 p.m., it was 78 degrees. Right now it is 44 degrees and raining, and this is Texas in the winter. So people don't, it's very hard to book a walk because I don't know from day to day. I mean, literally, the weatherman says tomorrow, sunny, and no, dude, you got it wrong again. And the other interesting thing is we have, and sorry if I sound like I'm whining here, but bear with me, maybe I am whining a little. We have a tree that pollinates this time of year. It's a cedar tree. We call it the Cedar Allergy. It's actually a juniper derivative. Anyway, people are wildly allergic to this tree. Wildly allergic, and so people get flu. They call it cedar fever. It develops a flu-like symptom in people.
Ooh.
This goes on for 2 to 3 months, and so Texas in the winter is a real pleasure, my friends. Allow me to whine and complain, but it does create some challenges because people are very spoiled on good weather. Whereas maybe in Canada, you expect the weather to be, you think it's going to be 44 degrees. I know you're laughing at me. Go ahead.
Courtney, where in Texas are you?
I'm halfway between Austin and San Antonio in the hill country of Texas, which people say is the most beautiful area of Texas. And I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're -7 with snow squalls right now, but yesterday we were +7 with rain. So who knows?
Yeah, you're like with Brenda. You and Brenda are in the same boat. So did we cover kind of all the different questions that might have arisen for people throughout this process? And remember, I am always here, right? That you can always call me. You can email me if you're having any kind of issues with a client, or a client wants a little more information or some clarity or whatever. I'm happy to call them. And know too that we do get a fair amount of people who fill out our application online. I mean, that is how Robin got these 2 trails. These were trails that had contacted me, and I sent them to her. So, and then Beth, another guide, I've sent her 3 trails. So we get a fair amount of people who are applying to our online application looking for trail certification consultants. So if you can't find any on your own, there might be a chance that they'll come to me. But again, I'm always here to support. So any questions, no question is a bad question.
Michelle, this is really helpful because I'm not actually working currently developing trails. Just hearing from people that are just bringing everything back up into my working memory again has been really good. Thank you.
Oh, yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. So I just want to wrap up. Did anyone have any more burning questions to ask, or?
I just want to add, if you guys or any of you have ideas of, I guess it would be marketing. How do we get to that tipping point? So, because I'm still at the point where people are like, what? Nature therapy, forest bathing? It's not, we have not reached that tipping point in this region yet. People still don't know what we're talking about. So, I'm one lone warrior, trying to educate an entire region. I would love any input or ideas on that, on how to, I'm working hard on Instagram and Facebook and trying to just build a community. But like I said, it's that, like they say about art galleries, one art gallery alone on a corner will not survive. 20 art galleries will survive, So how do I get beyond that, to, and I realize some of that's just time, and I'm generally a patient person, but just thoughts on that, and how, maybe Michelle, that's a separate conversation, and you could kind of coach me a little on how.
Yeah, it's challenging. I mean, I ran a nonprofit, right? So Brendan knows the Resiliency Institute in Naperville, and I think it took us over 2.5 years before we were really getting any traction. I mean, we were offering once a month free walks, just hour-long ones, you know, to try to grow awareness of it. We were trying to offer series of, I mean, we did so many different kinds of things to try to grow awareness, and it was really, really challenging. I mean, we had to change prices so many times. We worked with the Arboretum, we worked with the Forest Preserve, right? We did all these different things. So it's really time and diligence, you know, really knowing that it will happen, and just continue to put yourself out there and continue to spread the word with as many organizations who would be supportive, like arboretums and forest preserves and things like park districts and things like that. So that's really my best advice, is to just keep trying, and to even work with, like when I went to a visitor, it was like a conference or gathering of nonprofits. So if there is ever a gathering of like nonprofits or something in your area where they all get together and it's a way for them to kind of share what they do so they can get volunteers, fantastic place to go to promote forest therapy. Because I encountered board members who said, absolutely, we want to pay to have our staff take a forest therapy walk, right? So the board of those nonprofits, the board members are willing to pay to have their social workers, their caregivers, whoever their, you know, support staff is, to pay for them to receive forest therapy. So it's much easier for them to pay for their staff than it is for them to make it happen for the people that they serve, because there's a lot of legality stuff that gets in the way, but you can offer it to the caregivers, the social workers, and things like that. So that's an opportunity to maybe spread the word, because then you're able to kind of get into that network, right? Get into that nonprofits network.
I'd second that, Courtney. I'm finding some success right now because I've found a way into, I think, the decision makers and the taste makers through like professional development companies.
Mm-hmm.
These are the people who are training all of those burnt out executives, and it's through those burnt out executives that the notion of forest bathing then trickles down, basically. So get to some of those people, and there are really progressive ones who are really open to trying something alternative like what we offer. So find them in your neck of the woods.
Guys, I'm going to have to apologize. I have to take my dog to an appointment. I'm going to have to go, but it was
Finishing.
great hearing everything, and I look forward to our next one.
Thank you, Rob. Bye-bye.
Right. Take care.
All right. I'd like to just say goodbye to everybody. Thank you. And we'll do this again as we get further along with some of these trails. Hopefully we'll be able to say, hey, we have some certified trails now. We can kind of talk to that. And maybe some of you will be a little further along with the trails you're working on, and we can share that. But I think it's really good for us to continue this dialogue and this conversation as we grow as a group of consultants to support each other.
Yes. Thank you so much, Michelle, for bringing this together. It was really helpful. And I'd love to see it, quarterly or on a regular basis. It's great.
Yeah, really nice meeting other trail certification consultants and hearing what your issues are. Great ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just thinking
everyone.
If a meeting could be set up regularly, maybe whatever you feel is necessary, but so we would know when it's on our calendar. So, so it can be scheduled for in advance. That would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Great. I will look at that and email it out for people to have feedback.
And if we could have, speaking of email, if there could be a listing of the folks that are consulting, that are consultants, so that we could contact each other, connect with each other, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll put that out and see if everyone approves of that. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That would be great. Could we is there a separate Facebook group for trail consultants? That would be a great way to communicate too, if everybody's
Does everyone use Facebook?
Yes.
Marianne doesn't.
But that's okay. You go ahead and do one. I just don't do it. One quick thing, Courtney, on your question. Another resource is Parks RX America, and they have great videos, and it's really catching traction with physicians. So that's another resource for you.
That's great, you guys. Thanks very much. Yeah. I actually work part-time with 2 different nonprofits, and I've lived in this town, in this area for 26 years now. So I'm pretty well connected with people, but it's just that, it's just, like you said, just constantly getting out there, networking, always. So yeah, definitely open to different ideas, and thank you for everything you guys suggested. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Gotta go. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, all.
Bye, all.
Bye. Thanks.
You're welcome.